Hey guys, Lane here from Maker's Lane. Today I'm going to be making this tree stump side table. One of the really cool things about this table is the fact that it was actually made from a previous project I did. Basically, I have this big tree stump in the front of my yard, and I cut off a little bit of it and made it into a flower pot. One of the other really cool features is the fact that this table has built-in LEDs, so with the push of a button, it now lights up. Pretty cool party trick. But to get this project started, the first thing we're gonna have to do, since I did take it off of that old tree stump, it was very uneven, and so I'm gonna have to go through, and the first thing I'm gonna have to do is level all these pieces down so that I have a good working surface. So let's go ahead and over to the shop and get started. Okay, so it's had about 3 days to set up. One thing about this thick set epoxy is you have to give it a long time to cure up because it stays very tacky for a very long time. The other bad part about this compared to like tabletop epoxy is it's a lot thinner, which means it'll go through holes that you might have a lot easier. So obviously I had to go through, and I used hot glue and super glue to try and catch the holes. I would pour it, wait 8 hours till it got a little bit more tacky, and then pour again 8 hours. So that's how I got this full 3-inch section here. So the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and flatten this top part off, and I'm gonna use the same type method using my router. Flip it over. I have plans to put some LEDs to kind of brighten this up. I don't know how well it's gonna work since this is a pretty thick table. I don't know how well it's gonna shine through. So I'll have to also clean up the bottom. So let's go ahead and get this down to a flat surface. now this is all flattened out. So the next step we're gonna do is pour another layer of epoxy. It is going to be a tabletop epoxy. So all that's different about that compared to this other epoxy I used is it's a lot thicker and it dries up a lot faster. So I think it only takes 8 hours to dry up. What it's good for is something that's completely flat. You just pour it on top and it kind of self-levels it. You gotta kind of tell it where to go, but it's thick enough to where it doesn't like just run off the edges and everything. It will run off the edges a little bit, but that's why you kind of raise it up a little bit so this doesn't stick to the table. That's the next step. I did go ahead and flip it over and flattened off the bottom, and this is actually the bottom that I have here on top. So I decided I liked the way it looked a lot better, so I obviously flipped it over. Now this is going to be the top, and then the other side, what was the top, is now the bottom. And once that's all dried up, then we can start working on the table legs. All right, now that it's been dry for a day or so, I'm really actually happy with how it turned out. Did not expect it to turn out this well. The next thing I'm gonna do is flip it over. I'm going to route out kind of like along the path here of where like all the different parts are that can be like shined through with light, and basically just lay the LEDs inside of it, kind of recessed. And then I will pour another layer of epoxy on the bottom here for two reasons. One, to hold the LEDs in, and the other to seal the bottom of the wood so it doesn't want to crack or anything like that. So these are the LEDs I'm using for this. They're actually battery powered. I just found them on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below. I don't know how well or bright they're gonna be, so I may have to use different ones, but this is what I'm gonna use for right now. All right, so now that this is all done and all set up and cured, I can go ahead and start making the legs. So for the legs, I'm gonna use these two pieces. This is a piece of 1/8 inch just steel, and then these are 1 inch square tubing. Basically, I'm gonna make the legs 18 inches tall and then weld a flat piece on the bottom and a flat piece on the top, and it'll be a square, probably about 2 by 2 inches. The top piece will be to secure to the bottom of the table itself, and then the bottom piece will just be more of a stabilizing piece. So yeah, let's go ahead and make those up real quick. Okay, so the legs are all secured on here. They look good. Obviously, they still need to be painted. I'm just gonna paint them black. But after seeing this, I sat it up, and I'm thinking I want to add some supports across, so like a cross member here and a cross member here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then once that's done, I can go ahead and paint it.
There's dirt on my hands, strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon. Up to my chin, won't stop fighting to the very end. Many men try to reach it, many have failed. Well, if you wanna get to heaven, you gotta raise a little hell. And I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down.
Alright, so here it is all done. Gotta say, this is one of my favorite projects I've done so far. I didn't actually do this for a customer or anybody in particular. I just kind of wanted to make it, so I just made it. So as I said before, this is actually part of a tree that I used, or that I cut off for a previous video. So if I had to go back and do it again, this edge, I left it rough, and I left like some of the bark and some of the character on it, like there was some mold and stuff that had grown on it. I left all that on there. It kind of makes it so it's a really rough edge, and if I were like to go to sell this, I'd kind of be worried that somebody might get it caught on something. So I would probably go back and just take a grinder and like kind of smooth it out a little bit and just take away some of these sharp edges. Not all of the character, but just some of the more sharp edges. Yeah, I think the LEDs in it, I was really worried that because it was so thick that the LEDs wouldn't show up very well, but as you can see, even on camera, they show up, and that the video really doesn't do it justice for how like bright and neat these lights look in the epoxy. I mean, it almost makes it look like it's like an ocean scene where like there's a massive cliff with the water coming up. It's a really cool look. If you guys have any questions, obviously just hit me up in the comments. I'd be happy to answer anything you guys have for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'm Lane from Maker's Lane. You guys have a good one.